All right, welcome on back to the two taboos. Oh, I forgot where I was at for a second there. We're on the other side of the river, which means. Anyway, so if you're just joining us, this playlist is examining the two taboos, or the two prickly, uh, at least the prickliest things to have conversations about. Usually it's not polite to talk about politics or religion. Often that's banned from like Facebook groups, or it's generally not like appreciated at work, which is kind of sad because I mean, and like I just came back from my hometown, Buena Vista, where like religion is. I mean, Christianity is pretty big up there, and people kind of look past it, and if you're not a fan of it, you can just ignore it. Or for some people, I mean, because it's usually saying like God. I mean, like or whatever. If you can kind of like blur your eyes a little bit, blur your vision, and just even just pretend that they're saying God instead of Jesus, and like that fixes most of it because whether you're Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, then God makes sense. If you're Buddhist or Hindu or anything else, um, it could it's whatever God means to you. It could be okay. That's a little too much blurring though because it's like you could have multiple gods or what. I guess there's the distinction of creator. So flying spaghetti monster, totally acceptable, like as another idea. I mean, and it's intentionally ridiculous in the sense that it's meant to make you think, oh, well, literally anything could because we have evidence of nothing. We have no proof or no evidence or no observable experiments or like records or collections that are authentic too, by the way. I mean, and even the Bible and the Quran and all these stories that were written by people like Jesus and Muhammad thousands of years ago, and their followers and their friends, their family, their groups, and like the generally agreed upon people of the time that were smart enough to, well, be able to communicate because it wasn't easy all the time, especially if you think back the original written record before pre or right after prehistory, like once the official start of history is considered when humans started recording things, writing things down. Now, and that could even be slightly debated too, because I mean, if you think about it, like history and cave paintings, like they were doing a historical record of sorts of, hey, we're hunting these animals and here's how we're doing it, and in trying to guide people too, like you, and it could have been used as tools too, like you're walking around pointing at things, like okay, this is how you do this. Also, we need some seeds. That might be a little dangerous doing that too much. Oh, let's go ahead and actually trade these off. I put a bunch of beds across the river. We're gonna have to figure out, well, I should make more buildings over here, or more houses. Because, I mean, as is, those kiddos are gonna end up just running around not being able to sleep. Like, there are beds, true enough, there are beds over there. I got it. I'm gonna make a pathway over there, and then make a. How's that gonna work? I can make a pathway over there. I was thinking about what's easier, a tunnel or a bridge over. So if you're on a boat and you're going through here, I don't want to. That's why I kept those as lily pads, which I'm actually looking at it. It looks like those are sufficient. Okay. Mm, almost sufficient. That kid made it this far and then got distracted. I think every time like the path is broken, it has to recalculate the path. Just like your GPS in a car, when you like go past a turn, it's like recalculating or whatever. And now it's being done quicker, so it's more like it just does it without. I think I don't know. I haven't used GPS in a while in that sense. The GPS I tend to use is I'll like look up a place on my phone, leave it on the seat, and just have like the map that shows where I am and where it's at. And then like take very careful glances at it because you do not want to distract yourself for more than a millisecond. And if even that, like I mean, it would be better if I mounted it or something, But I also don't go many places that I need maps. And usually what I'll do is I'll memorize. I need to make it to this street and then turn here and then turn here. And if I can do it sufficiently with that, then done. Then you don't have to look at anything. You just have to look for the street, which you're already kind of doing. But you need to be careful with that too, because you can't be too distracted by looking for a street to ignore, like, say, a car is accidentally coming at you, or like swerving to miss something else and swerves at you. Like, you still always need to be alert. It's just a matter of, and no matter what, we're doing better. We used to like follow paper maps like pirates and, and like magically make it to our destinations. It's like, so yeah. I got way off topic here. We're talking about the two taboos, but that's the beauty of this channel. It's as random as I am, cause it's my channel. Anywho, so yeah, so what I'm doing currently with politics is explaining how Trump isn't Christian enough to get the Christian vote. And that's spoken as someone, I'm a member of a Methodist church still. I was actually gonna pop by Salida and see if my name's still up on the wall, but I ran out of time, but I might do that because I'll probably go up there again soon. But I mean, it's funny because I think my family said last time they were up there, they still saw our name tags and stuff, which is cool. But anyways, no, it's the idea of Christianity, I mean, is largely focused on democratic and liberal values. Like the idea of the wealthy paying their fair share and giving back to the land, the tithe. It's 1/10 of everything needs to go back to the land as a form of investment, like in the future and stuff like that. Even just the consideration, like thinking about, okay, how do I preserve this land for the animals, the trees, and because even saying it in that way, like you're basically disrespecting God. I mean, from the biblical sense. I'm talking the Christian view, which is what I'm more familiar with. I hope to have a more Muslim view soon. I have a lot of friends that are Muslims, and they'll weigh in. But for now, we're doing the Christian. So, anyways, the Bible says that God made everything for humans to use, for man, which I really think is just humans, like men and women. Like I feel like that distinction needs to be understood. That it's human, not just man, because otherwise it easily sounds like, oh yeah, women are just men's playthings, and God created. No, and it's even easy for people that are more religious to be like, no, that's not what it was meant. Because later in like the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, she was made as a companion for Adam. And even that I don't like. It still makes it as a lesser, like made from a rib. And so that's one of the things that I protest as a Protestant against Catholicism or like the mainline Christianity, because it just doesn't, well, it's offensively inaccurate, I think. Or it's an offensive translation or understanding of the words. And at the end of the day, I don't even think the words matter, because I think whoever created us with the DNA and the instructions and the guidebook within us to know what to do. Like to have an instinctual, like understand what seems to be a scam, what doesn't. Like that's becoming more, I mean, I don't think it was really classified as that, because even like, basic survival skills, I think we're equipped with the ways to evolve. And like keeping oneself safe and successful and happy requires now scam detection skills. So it's like an update or an upgrade, if you will. We were made to update based on our environment and surroundings now. And like Rick and Morty, so if you haven't had a chance to watch Rick and Morty, go check that out. But a lot of the episodes, they like jump between dimensions where like just very random and weird ideas are just there. And I don't know, I think it helps to kind of think about that. Like, okay, so no matter what situation, how would I build a robust creature or intelligently designed? No, just kidding. I believe in evolution, by the way, but that doesn't mean that that's not still some intelligent design of a greater being. It just means that we don't have evidence or proof of that yet. So let's not put all our eggs in that basket that hasn't been secured and fastened to the real world, or at least the world that we perceive or we know. Oh, yeah, that's a lot of wishy-washy too, but it's true. I mean, science is what is observably true and generally agreed upon. It's not perfect. It's intentionally not perfect, because there's constantly that idea or understanding that there's still probably more to the story. This is just what we know for now. And then that's great. And then the next scientist will pick that up and run with it. Be like, okay, well, this is what I found out through these experiments. Do you concur? Do you agree? And then that's where peer-reviewed papers comes in, because peer-reviewed means your other friends and not friends, like your frenemies and everything. Everyone that studies the same stuff that you do, or not everyone, but enough people that study the same stuff you do, are going to look at it and be like, okay, this makes sense, and I agree with this, or oh, wait, this part doesn't make sense. Can you clarify with this? And even just doing that is more like, okay, well, we're fixing the science as we go. I mean, which it's kind of like fixing in production, which you never want to do if tech standpoint, but that's what we got. And we try to release like the generally accepted scientific principles every so often, like through NIST and other standards organizations. But even that, it's hard to keep up with. So I mean, when in doubt, you still need to revert to, okay, let's consult the knowledge of the people that have done this before us. All right, and also completely messing this up, but there's already potatoes on that side. So we'll do this. It's almost like the Three Sisters. What was that? Beans, rice, and um, wheat, I think, maybe? Or no, corn. Corn. Beans, rice, and corn, I think, are the Three Sisters. Although I don't know if there was a lot of rice in Native America. Anyways, crops. Like, the important things to communicate to the next generations were always how to grow food and how to live and how to be nice to each other and how not to be pricks. That's it. That's all of it. Like, those are cave paintings, those are books, those are literature. Everything can be reduced to, treat each other with respect, be kind, or don't be pricks. I mean, what to do and what not to do. How to eat, grow food, raise animals if you want to eat meat. I do. I like meat, and if an Armageddon came and wiped us out, or an apocalypse, or whatever, I'd probably try to get a chicken farm or do a lot of this stuff in Minecraft, like chicken, pigs. Yes, I do like pork. I know that's kind of an anti, goes against Islam, but you know what? Eating anything but fish on Fridays technically goes against Christianity. I mean, if you want to get really technical, which I don't think anybody really does, it's just people think that it violates, their faith, and so they might think that they need to say or do something to correct that situation or behavior. When in reality, we need to realize ratios of relevance, or like how relevant is this thing? Like, is this problem, this concern, and am I understanding it correctly? Like, am I taking, and then if you don't take the time to like run that through your head with things, then it's best to say nothing at all and trust that there are people out there that do have those run through their heads, like security guards, law enforcement, cops, like the feds, like all of this. Like, these people are trained to make sure that it makes sense. And not just because I have such rosy glasses that they do such great training, it's the liability. If they're found to not be doing that, they get in serious trouble. So it's a double-edged sword there. It's like it's the accountability that you got to trust that they know what they're doing, because if they don't, we'll hear about it and it'll be a big scandal, and that's like the main thing that every company, both government and private sector, is trying to avoid, because it's so damaging and so expensive and so costly and so aggravating too, because it's one of those things that you like to not worry about. But are people taking shortcuts in your organization? And that's not meant to make like a reefer madness like boogeyman scare. Like, don't freak out over that. Just like ask yourself, be like, does this make sense, or is this relevant, or how relevant is this? Does this merit a response? Like, is this big enough of a deal where I need to do something about it? And I struggle with that, because I'll try to help people out with like very small things, and like, and then I make a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be, and that's like aggravating in its own self, because that causes confusion and delay, unintentionally. But no car accident is intentional unless they're psychotic. Like, I'm just kidding. As I say that, I was in a car accident that was intentional, a passenger. But yeah, we slammed into one of our other actual buddies' car, and we were all fighting. We jumped out, and we were about ready to fist fight over some stuff, and we slammed into each other. So, anyways, look for my book that I'll sell to make a profit to live a happy life later on in life. But for now, this is all free and encouraged and spreadable. I mean, this stuff will always be free, me rambling and whatnot. You can't give this away. uh, so painful because it's true. No, I'm just kidding. No, and I'm staying in the two taboos because this is still heavily regarding religion. Like, I did just get back from a nice weekend back home. I'll have to do that more often, but um, it was good to get more perspective too. Like, not that I needed it, I just remembered more of like what it was like growing up in a place like that, and the things that we would think about, things that we would, be concerned, or what have you. So, also I'm trying to get a ton of bone meal because I know we're gonna end up needing that. So I guess we've got a few problems to fix while we're doing it. So we're chatting, we're talking, we're musing. I really wanted to. So one of the first things I did when I got home was get right back to it, like arguing with strangers online, because it is important. Like, there's people out there, as we get closer to this election, there's people out there that are like getting ready for civil war. I actually told one guy to go F himself because he was like, getting ready for civil war, and that was probably not the smartest thing to do. But the FBI is watching all of this stuff, and they probably got like a file on me, like a mile long, of just like how ridiculous some of my tactics are. And I'm a social engineer, ethical hacker. But I mean, and I'm working on literally my career by talking to people and discussing politics and religion, and then pitting themselves against themselves. I guess that's I think what gaslighting is. But gaslighting is when you make them think that it's their fault when it really isn't, or something like that. That's gaslighting, I believe. Now this is like letting them think it's their fault because in a way, using the same logic that they're using on you, it is their fault. And then I usually follow up with a quick like, no, no, in reality, this is what the reality is, you know. So, and I also gotta remember to comment on another guy's thing. He did a bunch of heart to heart, basically talking about his own addictions to first alcohol, then all the way up to crack and coke and all that. And like, it's a very real concern. As a person, I'm very concerned about that for my fellow person. It doesn't have to be political. In fact, it's not. And that's one thing that we're starting to realize is that, you know, it doesn't matter what political party you come from, you are just as likely to be a victim or on the receiving end of the war on drugs than anybody else. And that's a pretty high percentage, especially the poorer you come from, either your family, your community, or even your town. Like, I mean, I come from Buena Vista, so there's a lot of more like concern about alcohol and drug use and abuse. And there's even a difference between that too. There's use and then there's abuse. And DARE was drug abuse resistance education. Now, and just because, you know, these things are illegal now does not mean that they're not going to be legal in a few years. Like, granted, don't do things on that. Like, don't use that as a justification because you will still go to jail. I mean, you will still get busted. But like, think about slavery. Slavery was once legal. So legal doesn't necessarily mean morally right or wrong. It just means what the current law is. And I'm going to tell you this right now, law enforcement is going to follow what's written law, what they're told to follow, before morality, just because they have to. And that does go back to the whole macabre, like, Nazis were just following orders and then, you know, killing all these Jewish people and any sympathizers or anything. Yeah, it was very brutal. It was a very good example of what can go wrong if you only follow orders. Now, and that's the kind of thing with what's her name, Kamala Harris, how she has so many convictions of pot, like being a DA or working for the DA's office, I think in California. And she was part of several prosecutions. And you gotta imagine all those pot growers that got punished like meth cooks, like freaking Walter White on Breaking Bad. If you were a hippie growing some bud and you got caught, it was just as bad as if you were Walter White out there mixing chemicals, like causing deadly fumes that would kill you if you didn't have a respirator on and nearby, you know, or cause serious health risks, all because you grew a plant that's only really harmful if it's burned or ingested, and if it's ingested, it has to be ingested in large quantities. If it's burned and inhaled, then, you know, lower qualities, but still never fatal by use alone. I'll repeat that again. Never fatal from use alone. There's no toxic amount that is humanly possible to ingest or consume of cannabis, tetrahydrocannabinol. Sorry, that's when I get on my soapbox because it just drives me nuts. Like, and then people are indifferent about it. Like, oh, it's the same as cooking meth. Okay, like, who cares? I'm not growing weed, so screw everybody else, right? Like, no, that's a horrible way to think of things. Like, you should be concerned about your fellow American and your fellow human. Past that, like, they're getting thrown into prison in a slammer for like a decade, all because they grew a plant that you'll probably never see or it'll never interact with you in your life ever, except maybe a car crash. But honestly, even that, like, if you really look into those statistics, like, there's a couple hundred a year that die from car crashes from cannabis. But of those, I think I was reading that even a percentage of those still had alcohol. So that muddies the waters right there for me. Like, you can't claim that as a cannabis fact or a cannabis statistic if there was still alcohol involved, like in any shape or form, because mixing is just dangerous, first of all. But second of all, it's not just cannabis. Like, if alcohol was illegal, then they'd be analyzing that. But since it's legal, it's often overlooked as like, now wait a minute, this is actually part of it. And not to mention stress, like from being overtaxed, overworked, and then punished and penalized and guilt tripped because you want the wealthy to pay their fair share and you want to be able to take a vacation or have help with your child care or have all these nice things that Democrats are all on about. I don't know. currently I'm arguing with this one chick, lady. Sorry, all due respect. But and I don't mean disrespectful, man. Like chick, dude. Like it's just my slang of talking. So I guess I can see that being disrespectful. Anyways, this lady wrote another book, like a very long post response to something I did. I said something like, it's funny how a lot of conservatives think, oh, they're coming for my guns and my booty hole. It's like the whole gay argument and worried about gay people doing this or the LGBTQ, rainbow mafia. And like, I see a lot of posts where they're like trying to really drum this up as like there's an army of transgender people coming to convert your kids into communist, transgender. It's like if you played Destroy All Humans and just like the jokes in there about how ridiculous some of the arguments about communism sounded, like they would blame anything for communism or blame communism for anything. And it's just like, and that's kind of, it's sad because it's true, like what really happened. It's like they used the communist scare to push a lot of things, and they even accidentally imported the majority of the cocaine during the height of the war on drugs during Reagan's era, and now it's a well-known Hollywood movie about exactly that. Tom Cruise played the pilot that imported a lot of the cocaine. Not only him, he started a whole group of pilots, that CIA pilots, that they had that intel. So they were spying on communists. That was a legitimate excuse because they had concerns that there was communism brewing down there in Central and South America, so they wanted an eye on that. And and I don't want to give too much of the movie away. Go see it, credit where credit's due. It's a great movie, so. But anyways, part of it was like they didn't even want to fight. They just, once they started arming like the anti-communists down there, just a bunch of normal people that were just trying to make some money and do something in life, but then didn't really fully understand the brevity or the weight of like what the American government was asking of them. And it didn't matter anyway because the communists weren't bolstering a whole thing. Like now BRICS is kind of scary because it seems more that way. But even that, it's like BRICS is just the answer to the G7 or NATO. I mean, BRICS is actually the answer to NATO, from what I understand. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I've seen. Is like it seems like that, but it seems like it could also be considered like the Axis now, as like they're making a stand, a declaration, and maybe they are, but not to the point where like, hey, let's fight about this. Like, hey, I want you to respect me enough to stop ripping me off in trade or undermining my authority when I'm dealing with and that's the Taiwan thing. And I do feel bad because I do think Taiwan should be its own country. However, I think it needs to be a mutually agreed upon separation. I don't know how we get to there, but like an understanding of it's like a parent being too coddling of their kid and not letting their kid go out and make their mistakes and grow and become an adult themselves. You're hindering them. I mean, and like with Britain, England, and America, we went through the same stuff. We're like, hey, we're doing a lot better without you. Like, we'd like to be our own country. And it ended up being a very bloody and brutal war. So that's why I laugh at these people, or like I get angry at these people too that say talk about civil war. Like, it's an election. Like this, you're hyped up because they're really good at hyping you up just because they want your votes. They will continue to keep your tempers high. And then I try to diffuse it, and this is why you shouldn't be as concerned or as angry or whatever. And then this lady called me and said I was toxic masculinity or something. Maybe. I mean, that's one of the things, like, I don't know, off right. Maybe something I said. I've had that happen, actually, where I've said something intending it. Oh, shoot, I didn't mean all those. Anyways. I guess we got seeds. It's just because, like, pumpkins are better to trade for emeralds, and then I just wasted a whole stack of them on seeds. We'll go ahead and put that here. But anyway, she mentioned toxic masculinity, and I've done that where I tried to reassure somebody that this process that they were learning was easy and that, they'll be able to understand it in hindsight. And as I went back and read it later, after this person complained, I admitted, I was like, oh wow, that does sound pretty pompous and everything. Like, oh, a 5-year-old could do it. And that comes from, partly from projection. Like, how do you read it? I mean, how does this email find you? Well, it's a very real question. Like, if it finds you in a very stressful place and you're very sensitive and you're going to be very agitated or whatever, like, any communication is going to seem like an attack. Straight up, you're just going to feel like, oh my god, why are you attacking me? Why are you leaving me alone and all this? And it's not unfounded. Like, it's understandable with human psychology and understanding. It's like we get to these points where we have thin skin or sore skin, And so any little thing is going to seem abrasive, or excessively abrasive potentially. And that's why I got to be careful with what I say online. And that's why I usually don't like doing this on Facebooks, because I like told myself I wouldn't do it there. Well, that lasted a long time, I guess, but I'm just kidding. Like, let's see, let's do the hay bales over here, because they feed the llamas. All right, let's go breed some llamas. Oh wait, is that a? Oh my gosh, they're all like stuck down there. Actually, we need to automate that, so let's leave that for now. Automate like a door to go in, or some way that I can go in easily, but they can't come out easily. And then make a nice llama lounge for them to. Yeah, sure, I'll get rid of these. Nice llama lounge so they can enjoy down there. But anyways, no, so toxic masculinity, she brought that up. Like, oh. So, okay, and I told her, I was like, I'm actually reading this book about how the Mary Magdalene Gospel, blah, 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 and I sent the summary of the book, and it's true, I am reading it. It's Mary Magdalene Revealed by, I just read it. Anyways, it's a good book. And I'm not even that big in Christianity anymore, because I believe there's a lot of good things in that book, but there's a lot of hocus pocus that needs to be addressed. You know, like basically the whole idea that Jesus was God. That's my biggest concern. Is like, no, we should just say he was a prophet. Let's not put him up on this pedestal like that, because you know what that does. Even if he was, here's why it's a problem. Because then everybody else in the world didn't get their God. You know, why didn't we get our God come to talk to us? And that's also why I don't think that he really was anyway, because just think about it this way. I made this Minecraft world. Do you think I'm going to care more about this guy than this guy or gal? I don't know. There's kind of like gender non-specific. Or this woman over this one. Oh, that looks like gray hair. I don't know. It could be a butch cut. And that's also my own biases. I'm assuming these are guys. Well, because of their voice too, I guess. Anyways, I don't care more about this person than I do this person. I could care less if they're blonde or brown haired or anything. What I care about is, are they going to trade me emeralds? And I created them for this reason. Now, we don't know the reason that we were created. We could have had a very viable, like, we could be clone troopers, like the Star Wars idea of, like, you know, like just the whole Clone Wars and everything. And then something happened and we never got collected for that war that we were supposed to go fight, or whatever. Or from Ancient Aliens, there's this idea that, like, we were bred as experiments to harvest gold. Like, that would make sense. We love getting gold out of the earth, and it's like our most coveted thing, and like that's the thing. And for some reason, we like it shiny, and you know, like it's almost like we were designed to seek it out and gather it and amass it, and then watch. It's just like Rick and Morty with like the battery. It's like this whole, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but like basically a whole universe was created just to power a car, and there's a, even Stephen Colbert's the guest voice on that, and it's hilarious. Like, I mean, just seeing somebody find out that, like, wait a minute, my entire existence, everything I know, all of the science, art, and like the hardships, the ups, the downs, everything, I was just a car battery. And then you flip out, but really, I mean, what are we doing but floating around on a ball of dirt and, you know, elements, of course, but like we're just floating around on a dirt ball flying through space and arguing with each other over stupid stuff. So, anyways, I brought that up with her, and then I included that whole thing. She sent me like a huge post. I sent her a huge post back, and she's probably gonna read it. Maybe not. I don't know, but maybe she'll read it. Just be like, read that, and then after reading it, like, and she's a woman, so then like there's that factor of, okay, so she has a vested interest in being treated fairly and equal in Christianity, because she's voting for a guy that wants to claim to be the chosen one of Christianity. So you better hope that that Christianity likes you. 'Cause otherwise, you know. And there's a certain degree of acceptance of, like, if you're being taken advantage of. Like, people, well, that's time, but people have a certain threshold of, like, they'll put up with it because in the long run, it's worth it to them. Like, okay, I'll ignore that that guy was being chauvinistic and telling me to stay in the kitchen and make him a sandwich, which is horrible. I hope no woman actually does that, but a lot of times I see, you know, a lot of jokes flying around about that in these groups, and I don't know, it's funny until it's not, and it's like, you know, if the roles were reversed, if you were, and I think that's one of the biggest things, is like, with the whole pronoun. Well, I don't want to get into all that at the end of an episode, but like just the curiosity of like how does the other side live? Is the grass really greener on the other side? And then they want to see for themselves. Could be a totally rational explanation for a lot of that, but I know it's deeper than that. It's as deep as like their identity and who they feel more comfortable identifying as and stuff like that. It's not so much oh, I'm bored with being one, so I'll be the other. No, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Anyways, that's my time. I will see you in the next one. Ta ta for now.